visitors to hotel websites. And I think it's disproportionately skewed on decision makers. That's a little bit bigger number, but I think that's generally into like the 2/3 range are women. So I would think the executive teams of major hotel groups and hotels and everything should probably match the clientele and that sort of thing. So I would say half to 2/3 is probably the best ending.
Yeah, and I would say I would credit this entire movement to this show, because obviously trailblazers like Lily and Kat,
I think so,
and Stephanie, and obviously the original Holly is the reason that this is happening. People realize that if this show can do it, then everyone can do it.
Well, Holly, I blame for the lagging and the lack of women involved, because Holly was supposed to participate but then didn't. So I think all women.
Holly held back women for so many years.
Exactly,
that's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Just single-handedly, it was very disappointing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I know. Shame on you, Holly. Shame. I'm just ready for. I mean, it's awesome, right? But I'm ready for us to move on from the conversation, right? And it not be a big deal anymore, because it should be a big deal now, because certain people have been misrepresented for so many years. But let's fast forward to the time when let's just play nice and everyone's individual, and it's great.
That was, I guess I can say it for Focusrite. I tried for last year. What I really wanted the hotel panel to be was all the CMOs, right? So it's like let's get Dorothy and Kellen and Karn and all these people, get them all up on stage, and then make it not about women in marketing or hotels or anything like that, right? Just do the freaking panel, because they're all very, very good, capable CMOs who are doing great jobs. And then maybe at the very end, just go, oh, I just noticed something. Huh. What do you think? And then that's it. And then close, right? That was, but Focusrite couldn't execute it.
Let me tell you, that's a little bit of a difficult road to walk to. We're looking at planning our convention and having at least a 50% female representation of speakers. But that means for my seat, I have to be somewhat discriminatory, but not in selecting speakers and approaching them. Of course, they would know the material, but it's the order in which you approach people. So it's a bit of a fine line, but I'll say next year, that's something that we were looking at, to have a greater female representation. And it's not because they aren't there and they need to be seen. It's because they are there. And that's just the breakdown now. There's way more female executives in the higher roles.
The strategy, I think, is you do a joint invitation to all of them, not one off, and go, here's what we're trying to accomplish, right? And maybe you send it to 7 and say, we want 5, but can we make this happen? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I think they see that and go, you know what? Maybe we should make this happen, right? I think that's how it gets done. But
Stephanie, you want to say something?
Well, I was just say there is an organization that's their sole responsibility. What's that?
Is that Castell?
No. I'm familiar with Castell, but this one is across all markets. It's an organization that just helps fill women's speaker roles. So companies will contact them, and they basically have a running list of the different openings across all industries, like just basically soliciting panel members and speakers for specific groups that are targeting women. But they allow men to put their information and profile on there as well, in addition to the to not be discriminatory, but it's primarily women on that website.
Yeah. Well, and Focusrite has a big women in travel initiative, right? A women's leadership initiative, and they had a great turnout at the breakfast, on the Wednesday, which is kind of the main day of the Focusrite conference, things like that. But I mean, they should just be kind of doing that, especially for the hotel industry, which generates, as they were saying, 70 or 75% of all intermediary profit. And the entire online travel industry is driven by hoteliers, and Kat, your owners, right, are driving that entire industry. So,
well, as a compliment to AHOA compared to other associations, other associations sometimes try to limit the people on stage to being relevant to a certain type of only hoteliers or only the people that pay to play or something like this. I mean, that's how bad that is. You base it on merit of content. If they're a content subject expert, they get an opportunity to be on your stage, which is a large step ahead of a lot of associations.
Lauren, you spoke at their conference. How
No,
is
no,
that?
I was
Wait,
only
there's
a
a
moderator.
there's a disconnect there. What?
I could be on the stage. I just didn't talk much. I was the
Oh.
idea. I was on the side.
That would be a first.
You know, like
Okay.
put him in the corner, make him wave, and then the real people talk over here. The
And
adults are over
Robert,
here.
yeah, we
Wait,
gave him the questions too in advance, so he
You
just
know,
had to read
read
it.
this card.
Kat, you had Lauren on stage where he didn't talk much.
Right? Yeah.
Actually,
Really?
but
Wow.
he attended other sessions where he quite robustly asked
Ask
questions.
questions, yes.
I made it up. I made it up elsewhere. I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm shocked that
Lauren's
Lauren
the
asked
perfect one.
questions.
Perfect one at your conference where people tend to not sit in the front rows. Lauren is always there in the front, and it helps. It helps move people a little bit forward. So.
Yeah, or scare them away. Either or can work either way. Hey, by the way, Stephanie, I doing all the road tripping that I've been doing because I just finished driving up to Orlando and Boca to do the HSMA Rocket programs. I got to listen to your podcast finally with Mr. Stewart, and I just want to remind you now.
Which one? We've done 2 now together.
More than I
Yeah.
listened to the first one, but I just want to remind you, you have the control over his mute button now. See, you can just say, "That's all we need from you, Stuart. Thank you." Click, because when you got to at the end, I was in the car and I was visibly upset.
That's
like,
funny.
come on, Stuart, don't rush her. She's got 3 more points to talk about.
Oh, that one.
Oh, as presenters, can I mute Stuart right now? Really?
Oh,
Oh,
don't-
look at that.
Robert, remember, it's a 2-edged sword. It's a 2-edged
That's true. I know.
Yeah, you don't want to start that battle.
New platform. Yeah. Wow.
But anyways, all right. With that in mind, ladies, what would you like? Since it's a pleasure to have any of you on at any given time, what would you like to choose as the next idea of conversation?
Well, I was gonna say, I know you brought up Uber, and I know it's.
Well, we
Oh,
do
that's
the
a rut row.
row.
We'll
The
do that
rut
one
row
at the
is
end.
always
We'll
last,
do that one at the
always
end.
last.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's our rut row at
I
the
know you
end.
got to learn the
That's-
rules around here.
The-
Yeah,
There's rules.
there are no rules.
Rules? We don't have no stinking rules.
That's probably the only rule that we actually enforce.
That's
It's
actually
weird.
the only one we actually hang on to.
Our-
Is like we
our
do the rut row at the
fever-
end.
Our
Yeah.
feverish fan base, and when I say fan base, it's one, it's singular. But still, once we get a second one, they hang in. That's what keeps them on for the whole show. Is the rut row? Oh, actually, I wanted to
Mine-
say, if I can add something on the abandonment rates reaching 90%, a lot of this is the hotel companies training very, very bad behavior and consistently training and rewarding people to hang in there, cancel things. And again, I use the poster child is the HSMAI marketing conference in January. It's January, I think 22nd, or Adrian's 22nd, conference is
Second, yeah.
23rd, right? So every year, it's now kind of a tradition. My wife will go up with me, and we'll kind of have a week in New York because we used to live there and stuff, and go visit friends and that kind of thing. And I use that as my litmus test for I'm looking for just one stupid revenue manager to step up and to help me out as a consumer. But they are fighting their way to the lead of the pack this time. So just so people know, that week, because I think Lily, did you ask, or Stephanie was asking on the value proposition for the conference? And I certainly, number one is it's Broadway week. I mean, nothing to do with the conference. The conference is kind of expensive. Oh, and you've got to book today, or the prices go up 20%. So it's going to get very expensive, over $1,000 for you to go to the marketing HSMA marketing conference if you don't book
Actually,
today.
Robert, I think we have a little clout. I think if we were asked Julie very nicely that if there was a margin of necessity to offer a discount in an extended form, we should be able to get it for whoever we ask for.
If
So-
you did that,
No, you did that. You're her favorite child now.
me?
We're gonna get all of our
I
links
believe
and
I
put
believe
it
I
in
was
the
a great
database.
compliment. I believe I'm
have
paying
to
full
say-
freight this year. I believe I'm paying full freight of $9.25 this year because I'm not speaking. So,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Lily,
not.
go ahead.
No, I have to say that the main thing with the early bird rate cutting off right now is the agenda was just released. So
Yeah, yes,
being
I
a
know.
data person, I am just now beginning to decide whether or not this has a place in my spend. Although I actually realized I also have a conflict with travel to South America, so it depends if I can move that. But
New York in the
I think-
wintertime or South America.
I
Well,
know, right? It's such a
but-
difficult thing.
Well, but here's what the hotels are doing now. So if you're looking for, let's say you want a 4-star hotel that has maybe 4+ TripAdvisor circles and maybe a 4+ rating, on a 5-point scale, so top 80%, plus type thing. And let's say you just want to stay in the Times Square Rockefeller Center area to be kind of near the conferences, which is at the Marriott Marquis. And you go and look at Hotwire, for example. The lowest price right now is Yotel at $70, because it's really easy to tell which hotels these are. $70 a night, which is pretty crazy. And earlier this week, they were doing some Cyber Monday type things. So even on Hotwire, you could get a further 11% off of that. So I'm staying actually, I think for Ryu, we're staying at a couple properties because we've actually decided to kind of do that. We change in the middle, kind of do the business one versus leisure one. But we're staying at the Ryu for I think $79 a night, something and that was before the 11% off. And I think the Warwick was like maybe 80 or 89. And the Warwick's 4.5 stars, Fifth Avenue, great location. Crazy low, stupid rates. And I don't know, I behaved. I wound up doing the Cyber Monday issues or things because I don't think structurally those rates could go lower. I don't know, Lauren, can they? You do a lot of stuff in New York. You think they're going to go into the 60s for 4-star hotels?
Actually, to be honest with you, yeah, because they all attack each other. They don't care.
Yeah.
I mean,
Doesn't Las Vegas do that too? Just with the competition, they drop pretty low just to generate the heads-to-heads.
Vegas makes sense though because they have ancillary.
The
revenue,
one
right?
thing
You can get
New York.
there's a huge value if you can get somebody into your casino.
Yeah. Number two, in New York, you're dealing with a union-based economy, and it does put a pressure on occupancy demands or people because the way that the relationships work is you have a minimum labor requirement that you're working with the unions on, and then you also have a compensation of loss of income compared to what you did as maintaining labor hours. So there's a tax credit to making somebody work even though you're losing money by having them work, because it maths according to their contract what they do. So there are a lot of the hotels, why you see this ability to dramatically just go under their actual costs in the market, is because in a way they make some of that back up from their contracts with union and their loss of income addendums and so forth. So that's why you see them do this all the time. It's like, hey, we'll drop it down to $40 if we have to, even though it costs them maybe $60 to clean the room, just because that factors into it. So little weird things that you need to
but it's pretty amazing. Yeah, most of them are independents, but well, in Kimpton, I mean, the Ink is way out. I don't know if that's on 11th Avenue or something. It's pretty far west, but even the Hyatt Centric gets some pretty high ADRs. They're in there at 150. And that's just their regular retail. That's their bar rate now is like 159, which is pretty amazing. That's a low week. So.
I mean, I think when it really comes to revenue management in a time like this, there's two major things. Number one, are you actually shifting or creating demand by dropping your prices? Because I think, we go through this. There's a property that we have on the Oregon coast, for example, that we were working with recently. And we discovered that by not participating in the Black Friday sales that the OTAs were putting out there, we actually had similar occupancy conversion regardless to the set, but at a slightly better rate than what they were putting out there, because there's so much competition around Black Friday. And this is more of a, luxury property that we want to focus on experience. So I think that every hotelier has a slightly different thing. Maybe an economy brand does need to run a sale, but I think sometimes hoteliers will dip too low in an effort to create demand, and they're not actually measuring the return in occupancy, because ideally, if you're going to drop your rates by 4%, your occupancy should go up by 4%. in order for that to be a good move for you. Otherwise, you may just be leaving money on the table. But the second thing that a lot of hoteliers neglect to calculate is, most people nowadays know their CPOR, but that's a cost per occupied room. Do they know what it costs to operate the hotel without closing it when there's no rooms occupied?
Right.
Starwood used to call that the daily nut when they would put revenue managers through training. And a lot of people don't know what that cost is, because at some point, breaking even to cover that cost
Absolutely
is worth it, even if it's a rate play in the long term. So there's obviously way more complexity that goes into it, but those are two things that cross my mind when I see people doing those types of discounts in markets like New York City in January.
Yeah, well, and even the Westin and Sheraton are 167, right? So
Right.
again, when they go there, and again, when you're looking at 89, 70, I mean, you're talking 4-star hotel independence at like half that, which is just crazy. But even with that, the compression that happens for the 4-star hotels to really start squeezing the 3 and the 2-star guys is it gets ugly, right?
Taking
Right,
advantage,
it all flows down.
Absolutely.
taking advantage of the mix of our co-hosts today, I have a question. Given the season that we have, I'm an ardent supporter of gift certificate creations during this time of year. It's kind of what I call free money. Plus, it gives me ability to gather data from the connectivity of that, and allows me a captivated audience. I can do some unique things to this. From a brand perspective, there's there's a certificate program, but there's also the point redemption levels. They offer bonus point redemption levels and so forth. So my question first with Stephanie would be: do you see an impact on that from a strategic point of view, that the brands are pushing for the redemption of points and so forth because of the annualization of the points, and then from Lily's perspective and from Kat's perspective, from the engagement that this creates or doesn't create, or is it even just a useful tool or not, and everything? And Robert, you have no opinion on this at all, so I'm not even going to ask you about yours.
The loyalty programs I get frustrated with. I think I'm interested to hear what Kat has to say, because I feel like there's a lot more owners that get hyped up about like what tier they are and things like that, more so than leveraging it from a marketing standpoint. I mean, just discussed that, and I'm losing my voice, so I'm gonna let Kat go. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny too. I was not fully hearing the question. Sorry. So I was hoping that the other two would chime in and catch up. So you put me in a bad spot.
Well, if I
Kat
understand-
has figured out how this whole thing works. You don't have
Just,
to
like,
listen.
toss
You
it
can just
over.
if Stuart sounds impassioned about something, you can generally go, "Oh, I disagree," and just kind of mess with them and stuff, which is really fun. You don't really even have to know what they're talking about. It's really good. So.
No, I think if I understood it, it was a little bit of a lengthy question.
It wasn't like
It was
So-
6 parts. Yes.
So
So
it
to
did come from
rephrase,
Lauren. So
we're
that was how
looking
to
for our gift certificate sales a viable option to help with cash in the low season. Is that essentially the
pretty much core of it. I mean, yeah, cut to the quick. That's pretty much one of the aspects. Absolutely.
Gotcha. And in all honesty, that is not a topic that has really come up under our as commonly under our revenue management strategic actions that could be taken. I'm taking notes to actually bring it up with some hoteliers that I encounter and just see what the feedback is. But I can't see it being a bad option, given that once it gets to a slow point, you really do need to think outside of the box. That's really interesting. Actually, I didn't.
I'll give you some numbers.
Had it come up.
Gift certificates are great. I'm a
I'll give you
huge fan
some
of them.
numbers to work with. A hotel that I work with in Florida, we sell almost $250,000 in gift certificates for a small 225 room hotel beachside. That gives us an audience of roughly 4,000 people that purchased into this. We then take the fact that we then optimize during low periods, the fact that, hey, you own a gift certificate, we're going to give 10% extra redemption value if you want to book on the following dates. Or if you have the opportunity to offer unique deals and offers, knowing who they are, where they are, because we know demographically more about them, then we can offer them unique deals specific to why they bought their certificates or who they get their certificates to during the course of the year, because we have demographic information associated with them. So we can actually say, bring your family to this such and such fest.
Kids eat free. Yeah,
Do you go
whatever
in-
it may be.
You go into this knowing there's going to be a certain amount of people that don't ever claim it or use it.
Breakage is huge.
Well, there's breakage run is usually around 30%, to be honest with you. We don't do it for that because there are laws as to how
You
much.
want people to use it. You want them to use it.
Yeah, you do for sure.
Yeah.
Do yours expire,
do.
Lauren?
What's that? No,
After a
ours do
certain-
not expire. They do after a period of time, according to the law. We'll start attacking service fees to them after 12 months. Yeah,
Okay.
Florida has a unique, well, not unique law. All states have laws according to gift certificates. Florida allows us to, after a period of time, charge service fees for diminishment of value. And we don't try to do that. We want them to use it. We push very hard for them to use it within the 12 to 18 month period. But the money's still sitting in an account somewhere. So eventually, if never used, it does have to be, because you can't actually put it into your books until it gets consumed.
Right.
So it's just sitting in an account.
Right.
When it's
Yeah.
purchased, Lauren, do you get like a record of the purchaser who will be receiving it as a gift so you can market to them?
And who bought it, who received it, why and what they want to write on the card, all that stuff goes into the database for them. And then we have a unique conversation with it because they're sitting on money. So they're more willing to answer questions. And we go through a process of every time we connect with them, we ask them at least one question. One additional question, what was the best thing you liked about your last trip? What is the thing that on your next trip visit you most want to do? And we begin to try to create these profiles of understanding to them so that we know this is our family group, this is our romantic group, this is our older group. Let's say, demographically, they're more wanting just to experience and be at the hotel. They don't want to go off and do things. They just want to sit on the beach, read a book, and enjoy the being there kind of thing. And then we pick times of year that these are valuable commodities for us to push on them. And then we keep track of their usage of their card. And as they don't use it, we begin to get a little bit more communicative.
Can I ask what system you're using to keep track of all that?
Okay. So we've wired
I'm
some
curious.
stuff.
You got to open Pandora's box.
Unfortunately,
I should've asked, huh?
it's wire and duct tape. It's Zapier that we're using the links to pull the data out of the CRM. We're creating our own databases that are pretty much just straight up Excel breakdowns by category, and then we'll go back into the CRM. Yeah, it's painful. And then I use a platform called Presto Mart for the gift certificates because there's a no cost option to that. It's a free platform because they don't charge for the transaction. We manually process the card not present. So I mean, we're getting hit from
How are you handling the redemption of the can they book it online
again,
or is it over
it's
the
literally a letter. And then what we have refined with this is every time they use a portion of their gift certificate, we will reprint a letter, not scratch and rewrite an initial. We'll reprint the next value, what's left on it at the front
On a
desk.
piece of paper.
So if I
This is
have
the
a gift
Rube Goldberg
certificate,
approach. Yes.
if I have a gift certificate and I want to book, what's the process at that point? Can I book
Well,
online and use the gift
Yeah,
certificate?
you book
or not?
online. But we, again, being manual to this, you book online. And then if you say you have a gift certificate, okay, then we reach out to you. You put your credit card on it until we call you. And then when we call you, you give us a gift certificate number. We look at the validation of the amount on it. Or you just simply show up at the front desk and hand the card
And
or
they'll
the
take
gift
it off
over.
of the-
And they'll take it
okay.
off. Yeah.
Gotcha.
There
we do
is-
both.
There are
Yeah.
easier ways to do it.
Oh, there is way easier ways, but
Yeah.
this is
But Lauren's involved, so he's never going to pick the easy way.
No,
No, and
exactly.
this has been going on for years. I mean, we've been doing this for years at this hotel, and you get into this routine rut of what's familiar, and this is what's become familiar. I mean, there are automated services that are.
Oh no, the best way, if you can, is through your payment processor, because a lot of different groups. I'm a fan of Card Dog, who's associated with one of the larger payment processors. But if you can wrap it into your payment process, and you can do really remarkable things. I'll give an example. I can't really use client example on it, but I can use a movie theater example. Marcus Theaters. I don't know if they do it for their hotels. Quite honestly, but certainly Marcus is like the 5th largest movie exhibitor in the U.S. They're very strong in the Midwest. But what they do is they have, when I was looking at this is a couple years ago, they had about 1.5 million people in their frequency program. So what you did was they had their thing, and if you had their card, a little number, your ID number, if you went and tried to book online, you didn't get fees, right? That they normally charge for booking a movie ticket online, which is great, good value there. On Tuesdays, which used to be completely empty, you got a $5 movie ticket if you were a member of the rewards program, and you got a free small popcorn right? Which huge. You can't get a seat at these places on Tuesdays anymore because of that. This whole thing running with 1.5 million people, 1.5 full-time equivalents managing that program, because it was all going through their credit card processor. So it goes through the booking engine. They see the ID number. They go, got it. We understand that. You know, the same way that your card works at a grocery store, right? That's mostly done through the payment processor. Outrageously efficient. And then you can just start doing promos, different things. And again, that ID can trigger things. That's how Shell does it now. Shell has fuel rewards, right? If you belong to fuel rewards, you automatically, if you put in your little ID or have your card, you can put in your phone number, whatever, you get 5 cents off a gallon. Oh, they do joint promotions with T-Mobile, which every Tuesday, because T-Mobile has their T-Mobile Tuesdays, gives you an additional 10 cents off a gallon. Right. So because I'm a T-Mobile customer, there's a Shell station pretty much next door to where I live. All of a sudden, we've changed our behaviors almost to go buy gas on Tuesdays, right? Because you save 15 cents a gallon. It's like, why wouldn't I do that? So this really powerful stuff, super efficient to run operationally too, which is great. And the data, because it's your payment processing, is incredible, right? Because you've got their profiles and you've got their actual credit card histories and the credit cards that are mapped to them. Unbelievable stuff. You know, when they're buying tickets with their credit cards for other people and things like that, it's amazing. So
I think the consensus is we do like gift cards.
Yeah.
Oh, and one thing, Lauren used the term captive audience. He's tested it. That does not mean hostages. Hostages does not work well, right, Lauren? You found that didn't work out so well?
Didn't work out well. It's not a good business model.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make that clear.
So Lauren, we used to, before we went hospitality focused in 2015, we worked with a lot of online retailers, in gift cards, obviously in that space are a big deal. But it really opens up, when you're doing things like gift cards, it opens up a huge opportunity for merchandising at certain times of the year. So, you know, as a gift option last minute around Christmas, when, you know, the husband forgot to get the wife a gift or whatever, you know, sending out emails Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve saying it's not too late to get that great gift. You can buy that vacation right now. Here's the gift card. And especially if it's electronic, they can print it out and they can have something tangible to give to that person the next day as well.
If you're a honeymoon destination, great around birthdays, anniversaries, Valentine's Day, all those sorts of things. Huge opportunities.
Yeah.
Again,
sorry. I'm just going to interject for a second. I actually have to drop off. I do apologize.
Oh, that's right. You said about an hour. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
I'm at the hour mark now. So, but great conversation. Thanks for having me, everybody. And I hope my fans will continue joining me, whether or not I am present.
Right. Follow me on LinkedIn. I jump back over there because it creates double audio for me. I'm over there and it's like, you go, Lou. You know, it's like, what? Okay, Kat, you got the team. If people want to know more about you, where to find you, where can they reach out to and find you?
The easiest way, if you want to email me, it would be at kat.m.speaks@gmail.com. As Lauren had mentioned, I work with AHOA, so you could also reach me through AHOA. But otherwise, I hope to be right here on Fridays with you all as much as I can and share some great insights. So once again, kat.m.speaks@gmail.com. Otherwise, I'm sure everybody has Lauren's contact, so you could reach me through him.
Well, or you go to timpeter.com for all things internet related or communication related. Yeah, timpeter.com is the place to go. So,
Lauren, I think you just
thank you very much for your time. Hopefully, we'll drag you back. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Oh goodness! Hey, you know what? The road trip that I had, I got to listen to all of the updates of Stewart's podcast. I feel very smart with Tim Peter. And then there's other podcasts I listen to. One is called Search Engine Live.
Wait, back up a second. So you feel smarter with Tim? Are you saying that you felt dumb from listening to us first? And
no. You're very entertaining.
A really great co-host you had, Stephanie somebody, that was really rocking.
Stephanie's episode was great.
Insights, and all of a sudden, you had to go pounce on her parade and say, hurry it up.
Hey, it was a great conversation. It went over an hour. We figured, we had to stop it. But I don't know if you guys heard or not. Stephanie and I were surprised this week. We texted each other, emailed each other. We were both on the Lodging Leaders podcast this week as well. So it was like, I don't know if you listened to that show, but they just take sound bites from a bunch of different people. And it just so happened that both of us last minute were asked to be on the show. And there's a whole episode where it's just the two of us and talking about
We had no idea.
deals and stuff. And we had no idea until last minute that we were going to do it.
Excellent. You know what? With this new platform, I'll figure out how to put it in there. I do want to make sure, like Lily, your site and Stephanie, your site. I want to make sure that we can drop these little call to actions in on this platform. You're allowed to do this. We can actually put things in. So when we start talking about why we're here and why we have the opinion that we do, that we can actually bring that up onto the screen so that people can reach out to us as time goes forward. Robert has a business already. He's backlogged. He doesn't take any new customers or guests in at all. Robert's just a very in-demand man, so he has no reason.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, I hope you tell everybody that.
Yeah, right. No, actually, Robert, I've been asked, are you going to accumulate your top 10 or your top, your curated lists and publish them at the end of the year? I actually got asked that at Boca when I was over there.
At the end of the year?
Yeah, they would like to see, is there a place they said that you're going to take all of your lists for the year and put it somewhere because they would love to be able to go and reference it.
I've been meaning to do that.
They love the lists. And they know we don't always get them.
I have been meaning to do that, and that's number 4 on my list. Right, number 3 is to redo my website, which I got about 70% of the way done over the holidays last year. Yeah, so I figure I can. This year I'm going to get it up to at least 85%.
So what's number 2 and 1 on that list?
Yeah.
Number 2 is I've got 2 projects that I'm working on for clients who are paying me, and number 1 has to be the unique hospitality identifier. So I was up at 7:30 this morning, co-chairing a work group for HTNG with 10 people on it, who were just going full. We were talking about database schemas and use cases and relationship. Yeah, just really fascinating stuff. So yeah, I got a bunch of stuff that I got to do on that for.
See, Stephanie, Stuart does let people hit their final top 3. It's not just that he cuts you just.
yeah, exactly.
Hey, it was a ploy to drive people to the website to read the show notes. Let it go, Lauren. Let it go.
He does do a good job about doing show notes. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Well, Robert,
Hey,
if
the reason I brought up all the
for
podcasting stuff.
your website, just let me know. I can outsource that for you.
Yeah.
But I should make a pitch that may in similar with Tim Peter. Our business models are we very much like high compensation, low effort consulting projects. We are very, very interested in that with recurring revenue subscriptions. Actually,
Recurrence, yes.
Yeah, that's Tim and I. That's the sweet spot that Tim and I are both heavily competing for that market.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah,
well, I have to give kudos to Stephanie for having the most thematic background for the season with the Christmas tree. That's very nice.
Yes.
Right. Brought it. Yeah. No, the reason why I brought up the podcast is a podcast I listen to also called Search Marketing Live, and they were bringing this guy that follows all the patents and trademarks associated with Google and Bing and everybody else. And this guy's older than Robert, which is saying something.
Wow.
And he brought up the fact that we need to stop thinking about, with Bert and everything else coming through, that of terms and words, but we have to look at ourselves as entities. That Google is looking at us as entities. What is our business entity? What is our person's entity? Because if they're wrapping us around over and over with our individualities, with the information they know about us, and that is becoming a much larger indicator as to what the results of what we get shown are, in as much as how we're actually asking for those results. So it's not just simply how we're asking the search query, but who's asking the search query begins to dictate this. And I thought it was a very profound statement to say that, because it does shift a lot of the development concepts associated with websites for hotels or businesses in general, but in hotels in particular, that it's not just about what you want to say about yourself. It's about how you're saying it about yourself as to who's reading it. And so you almost have to have variant flavors of content associated with yourself that reflect the possible demographics or types of people that would be interested, down to the type of verbiage you're using, to the imagery you're using, even maybe having multiplicities of pages that are referencing. I threw that out in front of you, Stuart, because I mean, you're the abject, you see these things. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, like most things, when you go on for like 5 minutes, I understood like 70% of what you just said. But
entities.
So when Kat earlier said she didn't hear the question, what she was really saying is, I have no idea what you just said.
It started out with a few words with blah 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 blah.
Use these big words, right? But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the industry in general has shifted away from keywords for a long time, right? I think that's what Google tried to push us in that direction by taking them out of Google Analytics, and that was a good indication that the keyword isn't as important. And because we see, so with things like BERT in the understanding the semantics of what the query is and the intent of the query and how everything's going more mobile, more conversational, I think we certainly need to reevaluate our content strategy in the content across our entire website, not just, the articles we're creating, but how we're answering questions throughout the journey on every page of the website. So yeah, I sort of agree. I don't know if I would go as far as what you kind of touched on, which is for different audiences, maybe tonally changing the way you're answering questions or the verbiage you're using. I don't think that makes sense. I think it's more about being an authentic expert on your domain and saying, this is what we know. This is our realm of expertise, in just going, 10x on that kind of content to make sure that whatever the question is that is relevant to that consumer that's looking for you, you have the right answer. And it's written in a way that's easy to digest, easy to understand, is going to hit the most people.
I think there's a way to do it right, though, instead of in terms of like serving up the right content for the right person. I mean, like maybe it's not brand new content because a lot of people are still going to be focused on whatever the pricing, the amenities, the location. But if you know that person, if it's over Christmas and they're searching for those dates and they're likely, enough about them as an entity to say they're traveling with their family, then maybe you would prioritize their offers or, about your holiday stuff. But if they're looking on Tuesday, Wednesday peak dates or something, and something about the entity that their pattern is that they travel. I mean, I don't know if the data is there or supports it, but hypothetically, you could serve up different things.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you kind of touched on, personalization throughout the journey. And we try to, anticipate based on what we know about any given consumer at any given time. And that could be how many people are traveling. Are they traveling with kids or not? How long are they staying? Are they going for a specific event? Did they pick a specific package? What other pages have they looked on the site? So we have a tool internally. We partner with a company called Blue Shift where we're aggregating all that information into the CRM, whether we know who it is or not, whether they've unveiled themselves, provided an email. We're still collecting and aggregating that data. And if and when we do get an email address or a mobile number or some way to communicate with them, we then leverage that in terms of our one-to-one communication and trigger messages based on that. In that simplest form, that could be a shopping cart abandonment email. But in the most complex, it could be driving an article that is the top 10 things to do in December because that was the dates that they selected or something like that. But we also started experimenting with what you're talking about, which is now using the data, whether they've unveiled themselves or not, to push back the experience on the website and customize it based on what we know about that person. Now, I think you've got to be really careful with that, right? You don't want to take away the stuff that's relevant to everyone and replace it with stuff that's relevant just to that one person, because you may make the wrong assumption and then you may end up harming the relationship or reducing the chance of them converting. So we're kind of treading into it cautiously, but I think certainly the more you personalize the experience and customize it to the individual based on what you know, I think the more effective you're going to be at building a relationship long term.
And that's what the whole podcast is probably about Google and the entities being more personalized in terms of understanding the full circle, which, they've been heading in that direction for a long time. But now that Larry Page and Sergey Brin have stepped down from Alphabet, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's the new era for sure. Maybe they'll go take the job of Expedia. Who knows?
I think that's a much bigger move than the Expedia guys. No offense to Expedia, but that's the co-founders of.
Yeah, it's certainly going to have a bigger impact on society than the Expedia change for sure.
They have a lot more control over how things are perceived in terms of just what shows up for search results in terms of news and everything else than Expedia.
Yeah, for sure. Lauren, a couple of weeks ago, you'd mentioned about that Milestone had done a really good webinar on BERT when it came out, and
Yeah.
I went and watched it, and it was really, really good. You're right. And they're a competitor of ours, but they do a really good work. But one of the things they were talking about a lot was how people are freaking out about BERT, and that coupled with how many zero-click search results there are now, where the rich snippet or the answer snippet is solving the question, the query that someone was posing to Google, and they're not even ending up on the website. But the example they were given is, if I search for, is the Breakers Resort in Myrtle Beach pet friendly, or does the Breakers Resort allow dogs? In the past, I think marketers wanted to drive that traffic to the Breakers Resort website, right? But now I think people are looking at Google as, well, Google's answered the question, which has solved a problem for that consumer, which nudges them further down the potential funnel of conversion. So it's okay that Google answered that question. It just means that now you've got to try to figure out, once they've answered the question, what are they going to do next? What's the next?
Where is that transaction going to happen? AKA,
Yeah, what do they go back and search after that? Is it now reviews? Okay, now I've qualified the Breakers Resort because it does allow pets. Now do I go search for reviews of the Breakers Resort, or what the check-in time is, or whatever it is? So,
and you can find the Google reviews, right, which are aggregated by Trust You, and then you're still in the Google property. And that's getting back to the Expedia issue. That's the problem, right? Google's just taking up more of the oxygen, and you're going to have to pay for your traffic, right?
You brought up a very good point, because this has been something that, since that webinar actually, that made me think about these things in the sense of a strategy change. Is now, should I do some very long tail paid ads that are trigger ads associated with things like that? Say, for instance, take your example of, is the Breakers in Myrtle Beach pet friendly? Should I do a long string trigger ad about our pet friendly values, or pet friendly amenities, or pet friendly aspects, or whatever it is, that triggers for those people that have gone in that direction? So it's like, okay, so I know that this question comes up, so let me put some long string ad campaigns together that will pop when people are doing that.
I think so. I think you've got to get that sophisticated, because, if you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to have a generic ad. You're probably doing some kind of modified broad match, on the brand name. So you're going to have an ad show up, but it's just the ad that's going to lead them to a regular standard landing page, maybe the home page. Maybe you have something on that page that has something to do with pet friendly, but maybe you don't. So I think you've got to make sure that, you get more sophisticated with advertising, that you anticipate where the demand is going to come from, and then create ad copy and landing page experiences that are going to service that query.
Did somebody hit a button?
It looks like they did, because it's all gone. I got a presentation whiteboard or something.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Was that me? I changed
that was
it
you,
to the whole
Robert.
thing. I didn't know that I was doing the whole thing. Hang on, I will fix that back. Maybe.
Too much power for Robert.
Yeah.
Can we give him the training wheels program?
Yeah.
Let's
Robert,
see.
put it
Hang on.
back.
Let's see. What is it?
Or we could all just start clicking buttons at the same time and see.
Right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like
Oh no, we don't want that. Did that go to full screen?
all participants are able to speak.
That's good.
Yay.
So while you work on that,
That's interesting, because I changed this originally to make us go to the.
Did you try to present something? What were you?
Yeah, what were you-
No, I just changed. I had it on the full screen, and then I just went back to change a different screen. That was very weird. Yeah, I basically said, instead of having it everybody full, I went to a slightly different format.
Quit
Well, thank you,
tinkering.
Robert.
Do this.
What? No,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the content in full screen there. Hang on. We'll figure this out, because I'm the one who originally set it up, I believe.
Yeah, you did. You popped the screen out.
I popped the screen into the.
Okay, now we're all gone, Robert. That's good.
There we go. Hang on, we'll figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, this is electric television, right?
This is
Like,
this is exactly what we want to.
Yeah.
What we want to
while
have.
you guys fumble, can I say the Rent the Runway, since we
Oh.
have female representation on
There
there?
it is. Okay,
Yes.
so people know it is Expand Video, which is off of. There's a
We
little
don't
up
need
and
to
down.
know, Robert, because we're not going to tinker with the buttons.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
So let's see, and then oops. Oh no, I did it again. Hang on.
Robert,
All right,
stop
can we
pushing
mute him while he figures this out, and then Stephanie can talk about the
Can you
runway stuff?
control his keyboard like
Yeah, we're just
down
going.
keyboard
Robert, we're gonna not
functions?
let you have reindeer game toys anymore. That's it. I mean, Stephanie,
There we
I'm sorry, you
go.
were asking
All
a
right,
question.
don't touch anything.
Don't.
Go.
Now I know how this works. I know how all the functions work except for this button over here. What does that do? Oh,
You are like a small child.
Stephanie, you
I
were asking
am like a
question.
small
Sorry. Go
child.
ahead.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank
No,
you.
I'm just the partnership with W and Rent the Runway for you men that may or may not be familiar with Rent the Runway. Lily, have you ever rented from them?
I have not, but I'm
Oh.
very familiar with the company.
Okay, well, I've probably used them like 4 or 5 times, and I went to Minnesota last week to visit a client. I did not have a heavy jacket, and I was like this close to just renting outerwear to go to Minnesota. But yeah, for you guys that don't know, you can basically, like, I've used it quite a lot when I go to formal events or anything, holiday parties.
Yeah.
You get to order 2 sizes. One, you pay for one and get a free size in case it, and you keep it for 4 days, and then you return it,
Yep.
filthy and dirty, and it's a fantastic service.
How much
that
is
they're-
it roughly for things like that? How much is that? That was my biggest question. Like, how much does this stuff kind of cost?
I mean, they have a pretty wide range. Like for formal dresses, it can be anywhere from, some of the lower ends are like, you can rent for 40. Some of them are upper 150 to 200 to rent. It's just based on the value of the dress. And then you can I'll usually rent accessories. Like they'll pair it with earrings or jewelry and purses or whatever. So I don't have to worry about anything. So it's a really cool
It's like a
service.
remote personal stylist.
Yeah, but it's not like a Stitch Fix where they have your measurements or try to make it for you. Rent the Runway is you just go in there and pick out. Okay, I'm this is what I want to rent. Basically, it's not very. They may have that service, but I have never used that particular service.
Yeah.
So no, if you rent it while you're at a place and then you're leaving, do you bring it with you and then ship it when you get home, or do you just leave it, ship it from the hotel? How does it
They
work?
give you a garment bag and a shipping label, so you just throw it in the bag, like literally chunk it in this garment bag, and it already has a shipping label. So I mean, if you're at wherever you are, you just drop it off wherever.
That's sweet. That's actually a pretty cool. I mean, from a perspective of usability, because when I saw the article that Rob put in, I'm like, well, that's pretty neat, for not having to go over and have a huge wardrobe and this and this. But how you're using it is pretty cool. It's like, look, I don't want to slap in a formal gown at an event I'm going to, but I can certainly have it delivered while I'm up there. I don't need a formal gown all the time. So, well, I do. I kind of wear them a lot. But I mean, besides from that,
I don't like wearing the same things over. Like if I buy a formal gown, it's going to sit in my closet and draw dust for the end
Right.
of eternity.
yeah.
But, right?
Yeah, and I
So-
think like this whole program is really smart for them because this is coming really on the heels of they want to reinvigorate the W Hotel brand because they realize that the in crowd isn't quite the same as it used to be.
Right.
And, just decorating everything in purple and silver isn't going to do it for them anymore. So they've got to, get with the times. And I think that this is really something that's on the rise, not just with clothing, but, you see Rent the Runway, Stitch Fix, you see Blue Apron and Hello Fresh, like all these different services that are adding a level of convenience for people. And as a millennial would say, making adulting easier.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nope, that was pretty much, it's a smart move, I think, on the heels of their goal with the W.
It's
I think
fashion.
it's a great alignment.
Fashion as a service, which is
Yep.
a huge category. Are you guys familiar with the Real Real? By chance, being more, the Real Real's very cool. They're probably the best in the business. I'm a fan. I don't use them, but I'm a fan of. I have a wife and daughters, right? So I try to keep track of
Well,
fashion.
I
Or you
think
can tell with my fashion. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of very leading edge. But that's certainly one aspect of it. And yeah, all these things that you can do to make it easier for your guests luggage and all that stuff. You can wind up doing some very interesting, convenient things for your guests.
I think that's what was probably not promoted well in the article is the idea or notion of baggageless travel. Like if I can show up at the hotel and there's a closet of things, whether it's workout gear, formal gear, or something else that fits me, that I don't have to bring a suitcase or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
concept to me is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know,
For
if
all
they
that have
really
traveled
wanna-
a lot, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like the less I have to worry about is awesome.
If they really want to target me, they won't tell me I don't have to pack. They'll tell me I don't have to unpack when I get home, because I kid you not, I have
Right.
2 separate suitcases in my bedroom right now, still packed from prior
From
trips.
previous
Yeah.
trips.
Because
Look
I,
at mine
which
over
is
there.
not hard to do, but it's just one of those things that goes by the wayside as soon as I get home.
But
Yeah,
just think of all the space hotels. It's almost like Amazon, right? Yes, they have these giant warehouses, but what happened when they acquired Whole Foods? Oh, they had stores that hold a whole bunch of really interesting stuff, right? And I still think Amazon should go by Macy's or something like that. But anyway, that
Yeah.
may not ever happen. But I think with these things, you could wind up being a hotel where you have lots of space. You can suddenly be drop off and delivery points and things like that, and start working with these places, which of course the logistics behind these companies can get pretty complicated in terms of these cities. And if you have a big hotel where they can go to a centralized point, you may be able to start doing something very, very interesting. And again, not necessarily like Amazon acquiring Whole Foods, but all of a sudden you start getting this, oh yeah, you can get that within a couple hours instead of having to reserve it a day in advance or whatever the logistics are, or return it. You just drop it off. I mean, you can do some really amazing stuff with this.
I'm going to tell you my one rent the runway story that was kind of in terms of the logistics. Like, I saw the UPS truck pull up, and I wasn't getting the dress until the day of the event. And I saw the truck pull up, and then next thing I know, he starts to pull away and not leave me the package. So this is when I'm living in Florida. So my office was looking out to the street. So next thing I know, I'm like full on sprinting down the road, chasing the UPS truck. Like, I know that my package is in there. Like, we're going to find this package from your truck.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I have a question coming hot off of the presentation thing from Orlando and Boca. I had 2 conflicting opinions as to the future of presentations and all-day conferences and so forth. I would love to use it as a sounding board against you all as to which way do you think it leans. I got told that the reason why attendance on full-day conferences is diminishing to some degree, or interest or capability, is because people are getting most of their information from their third-party vendors. They don't have it in their budget. They don't feel the need to. In other words, they're just fat and happy, and they don't have a purpose or reason why they have to go over and show up at these things anymore. The reverse of it was, somebody said that it probably will get better when the economy keeps its downturn, that people will then think that they have to start getting back into the game again, so to speak, because things are going to get a little leaner, and they're going to go back to the conferences, which is really kind of the opposite. So it's like, what do you think is going to happen? Are people going to start showing up at these things because they're not making as much money and they figure they got to sharpen?
I don't agree with that last statement at all.
Neither do I.
No,
Their
I think
budgets will
people-
get squeezed. Yeah, they won't.
For sure.
Yeah.
That kind of discretionary travel stuff is the first thing to go on
Right.
any.
That's what I thought. Hey, they cut back on training and
Um,
conferences right off the
Yeah,
bat.
I think there's a couple of things at play. I think one is, I don't know what the number of actual attendance is, on aggregate, right? But I think there's a lot more competition for summits and events
Yeah.
and conferences now than there ever has been. There's a bazillion to choose from. So that might be creating a perception that fewer people are going because each individually has fewer attendees. But I also feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's been a long time since a full conference has really knocked my socks off. And I
Right.
felt like the value was unbelievable. A lot of them are just they're echo chambers and regurgitating the same things that we've been hearing for 5 or 10 years now. So I think, those 2 things are at play from my perspective.
I don't know what it says about me, but the exact same 2 points that Stuart just made popped into my head, so I'm in full agreement with him.
It says
but-
you're crazy like me. That's what it says.
Right. But I
Yeah,
agree,
you should seek help.
Yeah.
we
There's medication.
Right. We sponsor conferences from time to time. And just by virtue of that, I'm not always able to attend the sessions, but I'll occasionally, a headline will catch my eye and I'm like, okay, I really want to be in there for this session. And 50% of the time, at least, I am disappointed that I stepped away from the booth. And
Yeah.
that should not be the case. I mean, we really need to step up our game, which again, I guess my third one that Stuart did not mention is that some conferences only put out their agendas the week of the early bird pricing expiring.
Wow,
And
that's
so,
a
you know,
wipe at HSMEI. Love it.
no, I think, but I do, you know,
It's
I
true.
think that it's across
Absolutely.
the board. I mean, it's the same thing like with hotels who put out their Thanksgiving dinner menu on October 10th. Like we're just, as an industry, we're often behind the eight ball. And
Yeah.
I think that to your point of there being a lot more competition, the people who publish the best agenda the earliest are more likely to get the spend. So I think
Yeah.
it's very much like, you know, everybody's talking about how occupancy is declining next year. Technically, demand is not declining. We've simply caught up to supply. And I think that it's similar in conferences and really across the board. There's not a decline in my mind. There's simply a spreading out of the demand.
And I can say
Actually-
from a
actually, international.
Robert, hold on.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like within the branded portfolios, like you have your mandated brand conferences that you have to go to, and then you have these, you know, where they're rolling out X, and you have to do this mandated training.
Right.
So from like at least from that whole bucket of hoteliers, they already have between like local trainings and then the brand conference, they've already got 2 or 3, maybe 4 things that they have to do. So they're like, I don't have the energy to go and do something outside of what the brand already offers. So I think that's a frustration, at least in my world.
Yeah, Robert, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, this was going to be one. It actually came out this morning, so I was going to do it for next week, but maybe I will. We'll see if it's a slow week. But U.S. Or Brand USA came out and basically said that the U.S. is losing share in terms of long haul travel markets, where global long haul travel is supposed to increase at 4.8% next year. US is growing at 2.4, so basically half that rate. So US share has actually declined to 10.4% from 13.7% in 2015. I mean, that's like a 25% drop in share, which is really, and that's partially what's causing impacts on places like New York, right, which are so reliant on international travel. But
New York's down
yes,
40%
we don't talk about
international travel year over year.
Right.
yeah, it's really in some sectors, especially the ones relying on international guests, it's ugly.
So let me follow up
I've
with a
got a
question.
call and I got to jump off, guys. So thank you, Stephanie Smith.
Thank you.
Cogwell Marketing.
If people want to know more about you, where can they find you? What do you do?
Stephanie Smith, cogwellmarketing.com. You can find me Stephanie Sparksmith on LinkedIn. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Bye,
Stephanie.
I know.
Bye.
So as a follow-up, what makes a good conference? I mean, I know the content's relevant, but is it
I like-
problem
yeah.
solving, giving action items? What is the key?
Well,
What's the magic?
I think it's got to be content, right? And also that networking thing. Like, so if you look at HSMEI's marketing strategy conference, which I do think in generally is one of the, if not the best conference that I attend on a regular basis, it has both of those really well done. Like, there's plenty of opportunity to mingle and chat and meet people. You get a massive hug from Lauren if you show up, and that's always a joy. But you do have to listen to his questions after every session, so that's kind of a trade-off. The content tends to be good. You know, they're thoughtful in putting together the agenda. They get top-notch speakers, and they try to push the topics a little bit more than it's not vendors up there doing a really badly veiled sales pitch, right? It's people actually providing case studies or having really interesting debates and discussions. But I think they could push it harder. Like, I'd like to see more controversial debates up there.
Absolutely.
I was really disappointed. Ed and I was scheduled to do the OPMA conference a couple of weeks ago. We were scheduled to do a not so presidential debate, is what it was called, where we were going to be told ahead of time what the topics were, and then we'd have to argue one side or the other, but we didn't know which side we were going to argue up until right at the time we started. So I thought that kind of format is taking a risk, but it's something that's a little more interesting and thought-provoking, and I really always appreciate things that make me think differently than I thought when I started the session, right? When I leave that session having been changed and having new ideas, that's the content that really resonates with me.
I completely agree. And I think, healthy disagreement among panelists, those are my favorite. I'm
Yeah,
much
like
more
that.
likely to attend a panel than I am a single speaker, to be honest,
Yeah.
because you get a variety of opinions. And generally, even if they agree as a whole, I mean, it's not that much different than what we're doing here, right? Like we all have a slightly different opinion, and that's what makes it interesting. If we all just sat around agreeing with each other,
Yeah.
there wouldn't be much of a show. And so I think that, it's really important that it's well researched, it's authentic. I do think that, sometimes these conferences fall into having the same people speak over and over and
Yep.
over again,
Yes.
year after year. And while they are really good speakers, I also think there needs to be more diversity. I love the lightning rounds that HSMAI has been doing
Yeah.
at ROC, for example. Those are very interesting because you get a wide variety of topics in a short period of time.
Yeah.
That's a great format. I also like the interactive ones, but they have to be done really well because most of the ones that I've been to have kind of fallen flat. I remember one I went 2 years ago, and I don't even remember what conference this was, but it was like, let's talk about some of the biggest failures and how to overcome them. And it wasn't well publicized that this was going to be a group activity. So people showed up expecting to learn from other people's failures and then were asked to broadcast their own in a group setting of their peers, which was very uncomfortable, I think, for the attendees. So you have to really think through the group setting, but worst case scenario, you show up for something that's supposed to be educational and it's a product pitch.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's the worst.
yeah.
That is the worst.
Worst ever.
Yeah.
Best
Well-
case scenario, you show up and they give you the top 3 to 5 things that you can do with enough detail that you could literally action them right now
Right.
at your own hotels.
Yep.
And so that's something that I've taken away from my own presentations. I try to make sure that every presentation that I
Yeah,
do,
the
there's do this and then do this and then
Right.
do this so
Yeah,
that people feel like they can actually action it. It's not just a bunch of good ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing with the HSMAI conference, and I'm not on the conference committee this year since I'm rotating off the board. But in the past couple of years, it was to come up with 2 tracks, right? One was the more leadership, strategy oriented type thing, where they could go talk about, hey, here's some things that are going on that are important, and this is again in the breakout sessions. And then the other one was the more practical, hands-on, case study, with hard takeaways, right? And you wanted takeaways from the leadership one, and the strategy ones as well. But to really focus so people, and then to organize them in a manner where there was enough breadth and you didn't have competing sessions where you go, oh, I want to go to both of those. You can figure it out if you put some
Right.
some effort
You're not
into it.
competing it. Well,
Yeah.
I'd add to the worst list is having somebody speak that's not the subject authority, just the person that wrote a check. Hate those.
Oh yeah.
The other is again, to your point, the board that all they do is nod their heads in agreement with each other as they continue to talk.
Well, the panels,
Yeah. The other is the technology fall downs where, horror stories for me is like, I remember when I was the keynote for the digital marketing conference years ago when I was chairperson, and I was I brought in a software to make a mobile app live.
Mhm.
Problem was we didn't have enough bandwidth on Wi-Fi to really pull it off.
Right.
And so it turned into a fiasco of hand puppets for me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're trying to get this thing loaded and it's just sitting and twirling because everybody else in the room is on the same Wi-Fi. I'm trying to ask people to shut
Live.
off Wi-Fi's and this because we're trying to get the software to run. And I'm sitting there going, we didn't think this through too well now, did we? But
Live demos. Yeah, that's the same sort of thing. If you're doing a product pitch or something like that, it's like,
So
no, just use a piece of technology where you can go through, and there are lots of things to mock things up with the user experience where you can click through and have all the things, and you don't have to ask somebody in the audience for a destination to do it live. You just go through and show them what it does and eliminate the risks. So
yeah. Well, let's hit the row.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, there was one other rowy type thing that wasn't specifically wasn't classed as a specific row, but I thought it was very interesting where it was about Avast, where it said, uninstall these snooping AVG and Avast browser extensions, right? Because your antivirus stuff, basically, they had a researcher look at it and go, wait a second, they are hauling in a lot of information. This is not just antivirus stuff. And one of the great sources of data for the industry is JumpShot. And
Yeah.
JumpShot has amazing session data and has it down into the shopping cart and what you bought. And, they came out with some great things on what was happening with frequent user, Marriott Rewards members and Hilton versus this. And hey, the more they booked on Marriott, the higher the probability they booked more on Hilton as well. They're owned, or Avast used to have a 35% share or a portion of Avast. That's where they get all that data. So JumpShot may get may have their data sources cleared out here, which is partially good, partially bad. I guess the question is, can Avast do evil things with it? Because it really is, here's session-based data on everything you clicked on every page, and it doesn't matter if you're in, whatever mode. Right? It's pulling it from the actual URL that's in there with your whole strings, all the tagging, everything. So high risk if Avast turned evil or did something centrally. Now, supposedly they scrub everything centrally and then give it out to JumpShot. But it looks like that source is going to be cut off. So there you go.
All right, so
less data.
Uber went over and did their internal, and they dropped the numbers. And it was on the Today Show too this morning. They were doing
Yeah.
conversation as well. And
now, has anybody rationalized this and said, "Well, look at how many millions of people take an Uber, and there were only
Uber
6,000."
certainly is. Uber's certainly trying to take that approach.
Yeah.
If you read
It's
through the
only
report,
6,000 sexual assaults.
Yeah, they doing it all as percentages, right? 99.9% of rides are completely incident free. That's their angle.
Yeah.
As a theoretical, like, the person currently in the group who would supposedly be most targeted or most affected by
That's Lauren. You don't know. Lauren is a very, very attractive, man.
Well,
I think he's the kind of victim that just really people
it's a
don't
silent
realize.
victim. I live. Yeah,
they're worried about being smothered by his bear hugs, though.
That's probably true. Hey, I can't think of a better way to go out, honestly.
True. But no, just kind of from my perspective, because this is something that came up when Uber first came out, and I had people in my personal life who were concerned about me using it. And I made the point that, first of all, why, if they have to publicize this information, why aren't we getting this from Yellow Cab? Because we probably just didn't hear as much about it in the traditional cab industry because it wasn't a thing back then. And second of all, frankly, I'd rather be in an Uber or a Lyft where there is GPS data that can be accessed about my location, who I was with, what car I was in, etc., than being in a Yellow Cab where, you see all the old cop shows and, Law and Order and whatnot, and they're always trying to track down some cab that they don't really know because they have to know the license plate number. And so I feel like they have a higher standard than other transportation companies just by virtue of being popular.
And I think, I agree 100% with what you just said. I think this is a really bad optics problem though for them because it's self-created because they committed to doing this report a year or so ago in response to some negative incidents that had happened, right? So they were like, hey, our solution to that is we're going to create this report. They volunteered to be transparent with stuff, which is the stupidest thing they could have done.
Not knowing the answer, Not
knowing the answer. They should have collected the data, taken a look at it, because they know, the way media is today, it's always going to take the negative angle. It's always going to be sensational. No one's going to run the headline 99.9% of Uber rides go without incident. They're going to focus on how many sexual assaults there were, how many people were murdered, and that's all that we're going to hear for the next week or two on mainstream media. And so, I mean, whether it's accurate or not doesn't matter. The perception is reality, and there's a lot of people, my wife included, who watched the Today Show this morning and has only ever ridden in an Uber with me. She's never ridden in one on her own. She doesn't travel for business, but she said, I'm never going to get in an Uber on my own because of that Today Show, and it's probably irrational, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's an understandable reaction
Well,
that most people are going to have.
and it's a different dynamic though from the cabs, because the cabs, people are paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for the medallions and things like that. So that's a kind of a direct relationship with a driver, with people having huge skin in the Uber situation. And Uber was pretty much dragged kicking and screaming into basically profiling their drivers, right? Because this whole gig economy thing is, these are not employees. We don't have anything to do with these people, because they don't want any sort of liability or unionization and everything like that. So that's how that was the thing with LAX. LAX made them make sure that they knew who those drivers were, that they were registered, and they fought it. Lyft went in first. Lyft seems to be a little bit more open, because again, they're kind of number two and have to be friendlier and easier to work with and things like that. But not that they like it, but they've been a little bit more compliant. But Uber fought it like crazy until the city put it down.
Go ahead, Lily.
So
If you look at the numbers here and just do a little quick math, though, we're talking 5,981 incidents across 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's approximately 8 per day. 8 incidents per day across every market that Uber's in, with all the multiple rides. It's got to be like a 0.0001% chance.
Right.
So I feel like I'm just sitting here defending Uber, and I do like using Uber, but if somebody should be worried about it, it's single female travelers primarily.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
well, and the
Or
apps now have
drivers
changed.
too, because the data also
That's
talks
the
about,
point I was
hey,
making.
an incident doesn't necessarily mean it was perpetrated on the rider. It could have been on the
The
driver.
driver
so-
too. It was almost an even split as to the instances that the drivers were just as much the victim as it was the passenger. Perhaps
But that's
that
getting
was-
overlooked. That's not part of the narrative that's going to be told.
Yeah, it's kind of a bigger problem, to be honest, because it's very easy to background check drivers who are signing up for your app. But what are you going to do? Background check all of your riders?
Yeah.
Like, how do you protect your drivers in
Right.
that way? What are the safety measures for them? Because everybody only focuses on the riders' safety measures.
Right.
And I know a lot of single women who are drivers as well. And I've wondered, how do they go about that? Definitely, they should probably be carrying mace or something if it's legal in their area. But
this also goes back to a bit of a general decline in the safety perception. And I'm going to make this an example that we were in Boca Raton, and we had a challenge getting checked into the hotel. They hadn't actually confirmed our reservation, so they were trying to fit us into different rooms. And they gave one of the female travelers, Bonnie, a ground floor external exit entrance room. You don't do that to a single woman traveling. You put them. I'm sorry. It's just it's like why a man opens the door for a woman. It's not because they can't defend themselves or they open the door themselves. It's because you're just being courteous. Well, you don't give a woman a heightened security issue by putting her in a ground floor external exit door room. You put them in a more secure room out of a courtesy. Unless they tell you, no, I really want that room because I want to be able to walk out of my car. Well, then that's their choice. But you as a front desk person, you think of these things, and they don't think of these things anymore. At least not in this instance. And
there was a big push about female travel a few years back, but it's not really in the news as much anymore, I feel like.
Well, and I think there's a subset of people that don't necessarily want those concessions, right? Because even in this article, they were talking about how the I forget the ride sharing piece of Uber, I forget what they called it, where you could basically carpool, and they cut it off after
Uber Pool,
8 p.m. They cut it off for women, single women, because the fear of that more at risk or whatever, and people pushed back and said that's sexist. You can't do that, So I think for everyone that's trying to do a good deed or do things that they think is right, you're probably going to end up with a subset of people that are like, yeah, you can't do that. That's not fair. That's not equitable to everyone. So, but I think going back to my original point, individuals can make up their own mind whether they're going to use Uber or ride for Uber or whatever it is based on rational logic. And like you said, there's a lot of protection. You could be getting in your car tomorrow and get carjacked, and similar instance could happen. But with the GPS tracking, the logging of who was picking you up and when and where and all that stuff certainly adds some trust to the entire relationship.
The apps now
the-
have been improved to, like, if you have
Sure.
a problem, or if you're feeling
Yeah,
there's a
one
security issue,
button. That,
one
yeah,
tap,
yeah.
alert, and I'm not
Exactly.
sure exactly what happens if they get somebody who calls back,
Yeah.
immediately, or it's
So
some
they're,
sort
they're
of live
clearly trying to
connection.
address it, right? But the way to
Yeah.
address it is not this report. If they publish this
No.
every 6 months or 12 months, they're just going to get hammered by the media every single
Yeah.
time. And the narrative is going to entirely be based on Uber is not safe. And that's not true, but that's going to be the perception.
And they
Or-
don't, I mean, they're out of date too, because these are numbers from 2017 and 2018. It seems like there should be enough data from 2019 for them to frame this and say, this is how many we had. This is the percentage we've been able to reduce it with our recent security measures, not just, I mean, I do this with owners all the time. You don't go in and tell a hotel owner there's a problem.
Mm-mm.
You go in and say, hey, we had a problem and here's what we've already done to address it. And here's
Right.
the action plan. Like, there's got to be more
Yeah.
context around it about how it's going to be better moving forward.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think Airbnb is going to have the same issue,
Right,
right?
they're beginning to, right? Yeah,
they're beginning to, and I think, again, it's twofold. It's not necessarily, the host generally isn't there, right? I mean, some small portion the host is present, but it's a minimal part of their business. But again, you get these guests coming in to whatever, apartment buildings, things like that, where there are residents who are there. That's certainly an issue. Or the residents of those buildings with, here's someone who's, a visitor into it, right? And I think that's a much trickier aspect, because you don't have the tightness of the app with the GPS control and the
Mhm.
they were picked up at this point and it was matched this driver to this passenger and things like that. So I think Airbnb winds up with potentially greater exposure on this sort
And
of thing.
they've come out. Their approach is a little different, and I would say Airbnb does a much better job of PR
much
than
more
Uber does.
much
right?
more
Their-
proactive. Yeah.
Their PR is very good because they've navigated a lot of really dodgy things very well, whereas Uber has just trodden in it every time they could. But one of the things they're doing is extensive checks on the actual accommodations, and it's probably going to take longer than it should, but by the end of, is it 2021, I think they said, or maybe 2020, they're going to have verified a lot of the listings, so they're not getting one of the biggest complaints is it's fake listings or really bad situations and things like that. So they're doing it the right way by being proactive about, hey, let's fix the problem, not just like Uber, where they're just saying, we're just going to throw out data and let you guys dictate the story, because that's a terrible PR move.
And Chesky's a great CEO who had learned the lesson really early, had great mentors who said, you get a problem like this, what do you do? First, acknowledge the problem, apologize, tell them what you're going to do, and then overdo it. Don't just go, well, this will bring us back to now we're kind of even. You go, no, we're going to go. And that's exactly what Chesky did in this situation. He goes, you know what? We got these 7 million. We're going to check every one. And if you listen, he did a great interview with Kara Swisher on the Recode podcast, and he was right. And it was like the week after those things, he approached her to do the session. When you listen to it, and she's like, absolutely, he was proactive about it. He took the bull by the horns. He had a little bit of control over the situation by saying, here's what we want to do. He was well prepped, and it came out, and it was just kind of like, wow. That's how you handle it, right? And, so
now, did
pretty
you
impressive.
see that, kind of on that whole topic of people stepping down and Airbnb, that their COO is stepping down?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yep. So
right before the IPO, which is interesting. Yeah.
Right. So I'm wondering if that's almost a PR move.
And she was a really big play. She was a big player and very important in their development. I mean, Chip Conley, between her and Chip Conley, she really trained the founders on here's how you operate this thing and make it go. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. But again, Chesky seems to be doing all the right stuff in terms of how he's handling this, how they're managing it and developing it. Dara marched into Uber, and yes, he's going to make a fortune from it. But boy, that could take picking up for where Travis left it and turning that monster around, let alone trying to figure out a path to profitability. that's a tall order. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, he's walked into a really bad optics problem initially, and I would say that the optics isn't any better today than when he took over, and that should be one of his top priorities.
Yeah, I think it's acknowledged that he's a better guy than Travis and a better CEO and an adult in the room and everything like that. But it's still these huge problems. And you're like, hey, you've been there for 18 months. Did you clean up the mess? And it's like, I got the hazmat suit on and we've, zone 1 and 2 are clear, but we got 12 more that we gotta, go work on. So, I don't know. It's tough.
Well, guys,
I got ahead. Yep.
Perfect timing because I have a call with a paying client at 12:30.
Can I make a quick request?
Yes.
So,
if I'm not mistaken, I think we have a specific show planned for next week.
We do.
Right?
We do. Yes, we do. It's Ladies' Hour. It's literally
it's Ladies' Hour. That too. But I believe that we're going to be discussing the challenges between sales, marketing, and revenue management.
Yes.
So for the two people who are listening to our show right now, I'd love to request that our listeners, whether you're listening to this live or after the fact, submit some real challenges that you have between your sales, marketing, and revenue departments, because I think it would be great for us to be able to answer those questions in advance. That way, if you can't make the show, you can catch it after the fact. But I think that would make it really interesting and for us to be able to provide value to our listeners to actually tackle real challenges that they're facing right now versus our perception of their challenges.
So if one wanted to submit a question, where would they do such? Do you want to give out your email?
Yeah.
Or Lawrence?
No. I'll put it, you can send it to info@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com, or you can send it directly to me, Lauren, at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com, and I'll add it to the agenda list of things that will be our topic list for the day's conversation.
And
so can the boys be involved on Ladies' Night? Is that allowed? We just have to be on mute.
They can heckle in the audience.
Are the boys allowed to be involved on Ladies' Night?
Jen Shields,
Stuart, you have to cross. You have to cross dress.
Kafaz. We'll be doing.
Stuart, if you cross dress, it's fine. And I know it's a Friday instead of a Saturday. So it's a little bit of a change up for you, but that should be okay.
Yeah,
sounds good.
And the way I'm working with my clients on this particular issue, and what we have, Rock Cheetah has a special 20% off. We are offering an octagon. I mean, this is like a UFC grade octagon for your staff meetings, and you put in revenue management and sales and marketing in there.
And do you hang like weapons
work
up on the top? Do you put like little cage weapons up on top?
No. We're trying to keep the cost down. So if you just bring your own folding chairs, that works really well.
That's
really
fun.
Oh, well, good. Okay. With that in mind, Robert, you get to go first as to if people want to know more about this amazing Octagon feature.
And the coupon code is Hospitality Digital Marketing Christmas Special 20% offer. And if you just enter in that URL, you will be able to find it. Lauren set that up for me. Thank you so much. So,
I like the URLs. They're my favorite.
Exactly. So rockcheetah.com or at Robert K. Cole is where you can find me. So,
Ms. Mockerman, where is it they can find you? And a little bit of, so that people get more familiar with you. What is it you do so that they know why they want to find you?
Sure. So I am Lily Mockerman, CEO of Total Customized Revenue Management, better known as TCRM, and founding partner of ThinkUp Enterprises, with a website to be launched here in just a couple weeks now. And we do all things revenue management. We can fill a role for you temporarily. If anybody wants us to do some holiday coverage, we have some great specials out right now for holiday coverage for hotels. And we also do consulting services to help you select the right technology and to help you reach profitability. So we've also got our deal on our profit launch assessment right now, just sort of a 90-day action plan to turn things around for you for just $2,020. So there, my pitch actually exists on the website. So you can also email me at lily@tcrmservices.com.
The Octagon is now 30% off. It's only $2,000.
And speaking about technology you want to have, Mr. Stuart Butler, where is it you can find you, sir?
You can find me at the mothership, which is fueltravel.com. They can listen to our award-winning podcast at fueltravel.com/podcast or anywhere you listen to those things in your ear holes. And if you want the world's greatest mobile-friendly booking engine, which converts better than Synexis or TravelClick, then go check it out.
You broke up. Nope. Say that again. Yeah. I did get the URL again because you froze for a second.
Fueltravel.com. That's everything. Very good. Yep.
Okay. Well, we're getting to the point where this the website will change for the show. Right now, you can see this and all previous 225 episodes of hospitalitymarketing.com, hospitality marketing at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. That is going to be changing to a new website by the end of the year, launching in 2020. Also, we have launched to compete with the award-winning. Actually, it's not even really competition; it's just different content. It's hard.
Hey,
that's the thing about podcasts.
Complement each other.
It's adding more content. But to be in the arena with the award-winning podcast from Fuel Travel, we have relaunched actually, the Hospitality Marketing Podcast. It used to be Hospitality Digital Marketing Podcast. Now it's Hospitality Marketing Podcast. And we're keeping concurrent with the show's episode count on ours. So we do a quick recap of this show, plus a lot of content that we didn't either reach to or other items that we're just wanting to make in a short podcast of 20 to 30 minutes. So that's also launched. And we also have our Monday
Apple podcast yet? Did it get on
it
the
came
Apple
up on, it came up. It shows that it's on Stitcher now. It's on Google Play,
Okay.
and there's this one platform I'm not familiar with, but it's called Big Wave or something. It's there. I'm going to go back to that, hoping that it finally indexed on Apple. What we're talking about is that there's AppSumo had a software offer for podcast.co, and the cool part about the platform is when you click a button, it'll submit the podcast out to all the platforms it has connections to. So, but it takes like a week or two for it to actually happen. So it's been a slow process.
I'm
anyway,
gonna go. See you guys
bye,
later.
Robert. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
We will see everyone next week for this highly touted dominance of intelligence in our ranks. We're finally going to have a really smart dialogue. I think Holly Sixty's definitely going to be there. Steph's going to be there. Lily, you're going to be there. I'm trying to drag Valen from Nor1 to come in because she's absolutely brilliant, and it's been way too long that we haven't had her on the show. Darlene was with us earlier today. She's also brilliant. I mean, honestly, we can have as many talking heads as we want, but I really am, to your point, looking forward to the conversation of the convergence of the disciplines, the real nuts and bolts discussion of what needs to go between the different segments in a very realistic, actionable. I can promise from the show, people are going to walk away with things they should literally do as soon as they sign off. So I think it's going to be a great show for that. And then, like I said, Robert curates the list. Hopefully we'll be having such a great conversation like we've had before. Sometimes we don't even hit the list. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, just one thing for next week, we're just going to have to mute Ed so that the ladies can talk.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Robert and me. And yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. We'll let you in because you're courteous and polite and kind and don't talk over us. All the rest of us folk have to go off in quiet mute land.
All right, guys.
See you later. So, thank you, everyone. And we'll talk to you all next week.
Bye.